I was born in China's remote mountain as an unwanted girl. Because I was a girl, my family didn't want me. So, but before I was born, my mother, she was 20 years old at the time. She was devastated when she discovered she was pregnant with me, 1955. So she was devastated. Why? Because if she gave birth to me, that means it would be end of her dream. She wanted to be a writer. Ironically, she wanted to be a writer. She was very bright. I took after her, very bright. She wanted to be a writer. She wanted to stay in school. Is always top student. And she wanted just about to get ready to divorce my father. The man she learned to hate, passionately. She just could not. He was actually her stepstone. She was an orphan to get into school. She was orphan. Nobody was taking care of her, sending her to school. And at age 14, she said, whoever sends me to school, I will marry their son. That's when my father heard about it. Oh, beautiful and smart, I will marry her. then he thought, as soon as my grandmother, his mother and his father heard, especially my grandmother, his mother said, are you crazy? We're peasants. My grandmother has a 3-inch bound feet. So I'm working on the fields just to send you in school alongside your weakling father. So how can you marry somebody, add a double burden to us? And my father said, nope, I want to marry her. So that's how they, got married, 19 and 15. So then after she got into school, she took off. She was very bright. She could get scholarship. But the secret thing is, she cannot be married. In China at the time, women have no place in society if you are married, especially when you have kids. So you are finished. You're done. Stay home. Stay home and wait on your husband and give birth to babies. She did not want that. So that's when she discovered she was married. And she was pregnant with me. Oh my goodness. She was strong-willed. You can see I'm strong-willed too. She brought found all over the campus, her school, found the heaviest and biggest washboard, pine wood washboard, pushed it against her stomach as hard as she could. Just want to try to abort me. And in her PE class, she jumped from as high as she could, and just jump all the way down. Hopefully, will bring me out. The fetus inside her had to go. Her dream had to go on. So. And do you think it's no coincidence? I stayed on. I stayed strong. Would not come out. So yeah, see, I stayed. Yeah, it's a miracle, isn't it? It's a miracle. Then yeah. So she could not abort me. She gave up. She very strong-willed. She gave up. So growing up, my mother never smiled at me, not even once. Every second of my existence is a reminder of her painful lost dream. Chapter 3 is about her lost dream. But she gave up. And the custom was, you cannot give birth to a baby. At the time, they were about to divorce. My father's side of the family was mad and everything. But the custom said, a woman cannot give birth to a baby in her maiden family. So she had to go back to my paternal grandparents' village, Red Stone Bridge. That's the Red Sandals, Red Stone Bridge was the place. So she walked 90 miles all by herself, crying tears, just hated, still hoping I would just come out, the fetus just come out. I just stayed strong. But anyway, she never smiled at me, never. I never knew why until I was 51 years old. I asked her, yes, please question, yes.
Okay, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I had
Uh-huh.
Chinese always want a boy.
Yes, they always had a boy. Yes.
What was the question?
Question was more like a comment, right? That was Chinese always want. It is very true. Always wanted boys. Always wanted boys. Yeah.
Unfortunately, now it's worse in India.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Only girls.
Uh,
Otherwise, aborted.
yeah. Girls are just worthless. Growing up.
In India now
Yeah.
it's worse.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's more than China now in India.
Yeah, yeah. So I growing up, so that's my mother tried to abort me, not because she knew if I was a boy or girl. She just cannot have me, could not have me. Would mean my birth would mean death of her dream. So as soon as I was born, she cried all the way, walked 90 miles back to her in-laws' village. As soon as I came out, my grandmother saw me as a girl. She was so angry, very strong-willed woman, very strong-willed. She was so angry, walking her 3-inch bound feet, taking care of her chores, did not even speak for one word for 2 or 3 days, first 2 days of my life. She's just so angry. And this is my mother left when I was 2 months old. So 2 months old, left me in the hand of my grandmother. I could just see her sneering, snickering, say, yeah, go take care of your girl. This is the grandmother with 3-inch bound feet, went through her own newborn baby daughter 11 years before my birth. That was the last child she gave birth, into the urine pot to drown. Urine pot full of urine pot to drown. Just as soon as the baby came out as girl, there's no hospital, no midwife. You just take care of your own birth. As soon as she saw it was a girl, just grab it, boom, into the urine pot. And my grandpa was a very kind man, very kind. Just all his life, that's his nature. And this was the first time he was being brave to my grandma, being brave. Dashed up, grabbed his baby out of the urine pot and dripping wet with the urine, everything. You have no toilet. You use the chamber pot. So dripping wet, choked silent. And he kind of used the rags and wrapped her baby up and trying to hand it over to my grandmother. My grandma snapped her head away, refused to even look at it, not to touch it. So my grandpa said, you wretched woman, it's a life, let her live. But my grandmother refused to touch it. So he put their baby in a corner of the brick and mud bed, that's a big platform, half-room sized that's everybody's bed, in a corner. So the baby, miraculously, baby came to. She survived, 11 years older than me, but her sense of smell is permanently gone. She could never smell anything. And her brain's a little slow, but she's a very kind heart, very kind-hearted. And nobody was ever praising her for being kind and good. Everybody was calling her, dumb idiot, you don't know anything, you're so sloppy, dumb idiot. And growing up with her, I followed everyone just calling her dumb idiot, I feel guilty, but you see your adults, people around you. But anyway, so this is the grandmother who raised me. I was 2 months old, my mother left me in her hands. And so in her hands to raise. Then what, 2 months old, how is she gonna survive? How am I gonna survive? You need milk, right? Miraculously, a woman in my village, the Red Stone Bridge village, was a 25-year-old woman, Ai Ying, and she was looking for a baby to suckle on her milk. And her own baby boy had just suddenly died. Who knows why, how. So, wow. So my mother went to the city, joined my father, right? So they make money, wages there. So they paid my milk mother $8 a month, 8 Chinese yuan a month, so to nurse me. And my grandmother was not happy. And so this worthless worthless female flat piece. I grew up, that's what I hear from her all the time, every day, give me dirty looks. Worthless female, flat female piece. Just look at those small eyes, just like your ugly, bad omen mother. And so my grandmother wasn't happy. I had to spend like $8 family dollars. That's like a fortune. Peasants can never afford that. So as soon as, right before I turned 1 year old from this milk mother, this milk mother was my blessing. Oh my God, I have a separate chapter about her. She is a good-natured. Chinese medicine believe babies suckle whoever's milk you take after their nature. I took a lot from my milk mother. I like to laugh, I like to smile, I have a cheerful personality, which my parents, none of them had this. Neither my parents had this cheerful, positive personality. So she was my blessing. But right before I turned 1 year old, my grandmother couldn't hold it anymore. That's enough. So she walked into my milk mother's home, just grabbed me and took me home. My grandfather and my argu, the one she threw into the urine pot to drown, my aunt. So I came home. How am I going to say? I am strong-willed. A stubborn dog is my grandmother called me all her life. Stubborn dog. Nobody can take over your will. Strong will. But guess what? I was the youngest. Like barely 1 year old. I cried. I bumped my head in the brick wall on the bed, surrounding the bed. I would not let anybody touch me. She tried to feed me some soup with a spoon. I pushed everybody out. It was traumatizing. That's subconsciously traumatizing to me. But anyway, I would not pushing everybody away. So I was dying. I cried, no more tears. I crashed my head on the wall. And finally, tears are dried, no more strength. It's like a lump of clothes in a corner of the room. I was dying. I was just barely breathing. So I don't know why why didn't she let me just go naturally die, do my natural death? But she did not. Miraculously, she swallowed her pride, walked to my milk mother's home in the same village. My milk mothers, when a woman is not nursing anymore, their breasts are bursting hurt, right? So for hurting, my grandmother didn't care. So she swallowed her pride, walked into my son, come save my baby's life, and I will pay you. I will pay you. I will pay you half month, like $4 Chinese dollars. And so she promised. So my milk mother loved me. So she came over, slept and fed me. Then my grandmother ate her promise. She ate her promise. She did not pay her. Instead, she gave her a pair of old rain boots and said, "Oh, this is fine. This is like new. Why are you not happy with it?" But anyway, I heard the story from herself, my grandmother. So she was complaining, "Your milk mother did not love you. She loved the baby boy she nursed." The rainbows was almost like new. Growing up, you put all these things one and one together, two and two together. So this is how I know. I happen to have a very good memory. I remember everything, as far back to when I was 2 or 3 years old. That was in 1959, China's biggest famine, and they forced all the villages to eat in the same hall, same food hall. So I remember my grandpa was loving. He was the only one who praised me. Look how bright my granddaughter, my Mei Mei is. So bright, world's #1. That's how the tiny little bit sunshine, give me enough confidence for me to survive. Otherwise, my grandmother's just whapping, screaming at me, ugly, worthless, and So 2 or 3 years old, I still remember my grandpa hold my hands from west end of the village, walk dirt rock road, all the way to the east end of the village to eat. What's the food? Everybody holding a bucket, water boiled vegetables. Just no salt, nothing, no flavor, just like a cabbage and just a little bit maybe pasta pieces, grain pieces. So that's, and my grandpa even chuckled. I could do no wrong in my grandpa's eyes. And he said, I was crying, telling everybody, this soup has no flavor, needs some salt. I said, how smart my granddaughter is. But anyway, so I have a good memory. So, but those are the years of growing up and as a born unwanted girl. And in the meantime, my parents in a city, they gave birth to 2 more boys, my 2 younger brothers. Then all of a sudden they need somebody's servant, housemaid to take care of the boys. And my grandmother said, oh yeah, I have a best candidate for you. Me, I was 8 years old. As soon as I turned 8, my family think I was old enough to be a servant, to be maid. That's what happened. They plucked me out of the remote country. Although it was a very famine, I died before I escaped the death of Jaws before I turned age 10. By age 10, 5 times. But anyway, so they plucked me out of the village into the city to live with my parents and 2 younger brothers. I was 8. My first brother, middle brother, was 6.5. My baby brother was 1 year old. So I was their servant. So that was from 8 to 18. It was still hard. It was my darkest age in my life. Was abused. Just my mother never smiled at me. My father was violent, just slapping, kicking, anything I do. Never with bad thing. If I cook extra half bowl of pasta, and it was like just a slapping, kicking. You're so stupid idiot. You waste the food. It was a famine. Everybody only get a little bit of grain ration. So said I was wasting food, but sorry. But my darkest age. And yeah, he was, I was 10. My youngest brother was 3. One day, yes.
So Jing,
Yes.
then your mother didn't follow through and divorce your father?
No,
Or-
she couldn't because of me. She couldn't. Once you have a child, it's very hard for a woman to get divorced. Your leader, your working unit would not let you get a divorce at all. So she was stuck.
Is it the one, they have 1 child?
No, one child was 20 years later.
Oh.
25 years later, I was 25, gave birth to my daughter. Guess what? My father-in-law, who was a medical professor, remember this medical professor, pressured me to kill my baby daughter, lethal inject and kill her so I can try for a boy to carry his family tree. That was 1981 was the year I gave birth to my daughter. So that was, see, I was just repeating. And a medical professor had the same view, same desire as my 3-inch bound feet grandmother. So he would not want me to have this baby girl. I told him off. I said, no, put my foot down. And then he disowned me, my husband, and my daughter. Just get the hell out. So it's, yeah. So that's, from age 8 to 18 was my darkest age. When I was 3, I was 10, my baby brother was 3. Bunch of kids, we had no school to go to. I loved the school. School was my saving grace, lifeline. I loved the school. Teachers all loved me. Can I have a napkin or something? Yeah. Oh, yeah, napkin. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I feel like, but thank you.
How does your brother treat you?
Oh, my goodness. they laughed at me, and I was their servant. They know I was their servant. I was no good. They called me country bumpkin. So I was one of them whined would be my fault. There would be beating and yelling, screaming would be. So, but anyway, this middle brother just passed the last couple of years ago, last year. So I was 10. My baby brother was 3. A bunch of kids, we were wild kids, no school to go to. I was 10 years old. The Mao's Cultural Revolution started 1966. So they shut down all the schools, beat up all the teachers, killed many of them. So no school to go to. Bunch of wild kids just left in our blue-collar dirt yard. We're running wild. We're crossing the street after I cooked and feed them, washing dishes. I took them downstairs in the yard, the blue-collar dirt yard. We were going to have fun. Wild. We were running across the street. And one Jeep just came by and just smashed right into my baby brother. And oh my God, my mother enjoyed watching my father beating me. My father beat me till he was out of breath. He said, "My favorite child dies. I'll come back, finish you off in no time, in 1 second." So luckily, divine intervention again. He did not die. 3 days lying there in a coma, just black and blue, big face like a puffed up bread. 3 years old. And so he did not die miraculously. So I didn't have to die. So my father didn't have to beat me to death. So miracle. That was so that was darkest year, darkest age of my life. Without the familiar village, my village I grew up. My village was a poor, famine, everything, but it was beautiful. South Mountain, silent, majestic South Mountain with a running South River at the foot, and just fresh air. Flowers and grass, running water, a little creek. I grew up by myself. That's why I love San Francisco. Got water, got a mountain, got a fresh air, everything. It was just God's grace. How did I grow up, survive? Barely 1 year old. My grandmother had her plan. I had a blind great-grandfather. It was a chapter, there's a separate chapter in here. I talked about him. Blind great-grandpa. It was my grandpa's father. He worked all his life in the cornfields until he went blind. He stayed home. So my grandmother's plan was, have this worthless piece of female, let the old man take care of her. Blind. And, hungry and everything, but turned out to be my happiest time. My great-grandpa, just like my grandpa, good-natured, make me laugh, tickling me. So my chapter in there was my laughter with my Lao Yi. So that was a separate chapter. That's until I grew up and just grew out of her confinement in a little yard. I adventured outside all by myself. All in my memory, I grew up by myself. I just, running around the hills and mountains, and occasionally see a Jeep coming by, racing by. I was fascinated the first time. I said, wow, look at those wheels, much faster than a horse-pulled wagon. That's all the wheels I saw. So I was, I crouched by the roadside when they come, cloud of dust and storm of dust. I wait till they pass. I just got up and took off and chase after it. I was so fascinated. I was smelling the whole dust, the gas smells. Nothing smelled ever so exotic. I was like 4 or 5, who knows how old, 2 or 3, growing up by myself. So that's just the way I grew up. I remember barefoot in a clear creek. And so I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. But so that's how I survived China, 8 to 18, darkest age, but miraculous. I loved the school. School was no more school to go to until 3 years later, I still loved the school. I loved English. First time I heard the foreign sound, I was 16 years old. I said, wow, fascinating. People talk like that? Where are they? I mean, where are they? I'd like to find out. I'm a teacher's pet, you can say, but I just, nowhere else I had any joy at all except in school. Teachers loved me, all my teachers, doing my mental math. My very first teacher was in a village. In my village, I was 5 years old. Until I was 5, my great-grandpa Lao Yi died. You know, blind Lao Yi died. I have no more refuge shelter to go to. So my grandma, okay, time to go to school. Grabbed my hand, walked me, 3-inch bound feet, walked me to school. My granddaughter's ready for school. The principal said, no, she's not. She's too young. You have to be like a 7, at least a 6. And my grandmother was mad at the principal because the principal was the one who put my mother and father together because my mother was his favorite student. And so she was a very bright student. So my grandmother was mad at the principal for doing that. And now she found a chance to give him earful. So grabbed my hand and took him to the principal. Yes, she is ready. Yes, she is ready. So 5 years old, put him in a first grade teacher. Who's the first grade teacher? 3-inch tall man. And I have a separate chapter for him, my first grade teacher. Oh, he was my blessing. Some of us even taller than him. We have to hold him up, help him up, put him on a platform to teach. It was a fun. He always praised me. Always, look at Li Cai Mei. Li Cai Mei was my village name. And so he was my blessing. He taught me mental math. He taught me calligraphy. I'm still good in calligraphy and mental math. Right now, I'm teaching in San Mateo, little kids, teach them mental math. So the kids grow up and they know how to balance their checkbooks and pay their own taxes. So you don't have to hire somebody. That's what I've been doing. Before age 10, I learned all those. That's enough for me to function in America. So I was a survivor. I was a survivor. I learned English. And so 18, after I turned 18, so-called high school graduation, so out of high school, out of hope, out of future. That's a different chapter. I have a lot of photos in a book. I promise you it's easy read. And then I came to America. I had to compete my way. I had to be absolutely top #1 to compete to come to out of thousands and thousands of people to compete. It's not a miracle. My brain's still intact. Survived the famine. I never know what a full stomach felt like until in my 20s. So I competed to America, and so survived America as a public school teacher. It's very hard. I said I lost all my self-worth. I was a high school teacher. I competed my way into teaching best, top college prep high school English. Hey, imagine that, that's a miracle, miraculous. So that's how I came to America. Oh, it's a sad story in my surviving, but I promise you this is a very easy read. Let me read you a sample chapter, and so you will get a feel of it. Very easy, short chapters. They are short, and they are in detail. That's why over the years, as I write, people loved my story. People just love. Let me read to you this. The reason, the special feature of my writing is writing my second language is not easy. I did not have a ghost writer, just myself, me, myself, and I. But anyway, so one of the good attractive point is if I have a picture to show, I show the picture, I talk about the picture. Not like at the end of book, you throw the pictures at the end of book, here are the pictures. No, I talk about them. So this is one picture at the end of this chapter has 2 pictures. Let me read to you, take off my glasses so easier. Okay, chapter 9, portrait of a sore winner. People say a sore loser, but here my title, sore winner, okay? In Chinese, I have a title translated in Chinese, 不得已的胜利者. Okay, this is 1960, Taiyuan City at the studio of Ding Zhang. Okay, here's the story. I was 4. My grandparents took me to visit my parents living in Taiyuan City for the first time. In his family photo, I sat centered on a tall stool wearing my new clothes, my pretty blue and pink floral pants, new socks and shoes, handmade from scratch by grandmother. Yeah, she was very hardworking, very crafty. I was wearing my special red velvet hat. Grandpa sat on my right side, grandmother on the left. Standing in the back were my parents, my mother, 25 years old, my father, 29. Sitting in grandmother's lap was Nimble, my younger brother. He was 2.5 years old. He was also born 2 months premature like me. But unlike me, he remained a sickly child and much smaller for his age. Not yet in his family photo was Cricket, my youngest brother. He wouldn't be born until 3 years later in 1963. Notice my grandmother's small bound feet. They looked almost the same size as my toddler brother's cotton-padded loafers. Growing up, looking at this photo on an earthen wall of my grandparents' one-room house, I never thought of anything unusual. That is, until now, over 4 decades later, when I'm living in America. My mother's gloomy face remained the same, but my father's face looked different in the photo. Gone was his usual half-toothy, awkward, and shy smile. Even Grandpa looked stressed too. Notice how annoyed my little face looked. My pig snout mouth was sticking out. My right hand was nervously pinching at my beautiful floral pant leg above my right knee. Something unpleasant must have happened right before this photo was taken, but what? I searched my memory, but recalled nothing about that moment. Although I did have a vivid memory of a lot of things during that visit in my parents' small one-room apartment. That was the first time I met my father and my mother. My mother's silent eyes and gloomy face, that frightened me. And her smiling face and loving eyes for my brother Nimble while holding him in her arms. I also remembered wondering why grandmother didn't get mad at me or smack me as she did back home in the village. Forceful and harsh grandmother no more, only a calm and mild grandmother. She talked to me patiently, half-heartedly, when once trying to stop me from eating out of a bowl of stir-fried cabbages. My mother had just bought it from her factory cafeteria. My darling child, grandmother said to me demurely instead of harshly, Mamie, sweetie, please stop eating now. It's for everyone to share at the mealtime. But she showed no sign of smacking me, so I ignored her, too hungry to even mind my mother's silent eyes. I was too young to understand that China was at the peak of its disastrous man-made famine. That small dish of stir-fried vegetables was the only dinner for the entire family, the 6 of us. To make matters worse, I burst out a chair, holding up my chopsticks. Look, I found a meat. Well, good for you. My mother's sarcastic tone was wasted on my 4-year-old blissful ignorance. I also remembered crying one night at bedtime, which caused my father to yell at me. The fiery, itchy, tiny, wiggly worms were crawling in and out of my bottom again. Holding my rear end up in the air, I begged grandmother to pick them out for me. That was how it was done back home in the village. But strangely, grandmother wouldn't help me. She kept pushing me down. Behave yourself. There weren't any worms. So many things I remembered vividly, except the moment frozen in this family photo. I had to find out. I called my father in China. It was 2007. Dad, why was I looking so unhappy in the photo? Why else? My father was quick to answer, as if he remembered it from yesterday. Always your stubbornness. You insisted sitting on that special centerpiece tall stool, but we planned it for your brother Nimble to sit on it. You know, he's the boy, our Li family's roots. You're only a girl, not supposed to be centered. We wanted you to sit on the side in your grandmother's lap. But no, you just wouldn't listen to reason, kicking and screaming, wanting a stool for yourself. After we peeled you away from the stool, we couldn't drag you off the floor. You caused such a disturbance. It was embarrassing. The studio staff finally lost their patience, so we had to quit fighting you and let you have your way. Always stubborn like that, always wanted your way. I smiled as my father told the story. Good for my rebellious little self. Picture perfect. The photo below was a makeup, so my brother Nimble could be properly centered. That's a photo here. Look at the smiles on both mother and son. What does it feel like being loved by your own mother? I'm still as wide-eyed clueless today as when I was 4. The end of, yeah. Oh. You would want to read it. So it's short chapters. They're all mostly short chapters like this.
So we have a copy I'm going to put in the library.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. So that's, yeah, oh, thank you.
Isn't it amazing human spirit is so resilient? Even in the darkest hour of your time frame of your life, it's always, right?
Yeah, right.
Always hope.
Yeah, always hope. Never give up.